like that. The counterpoint is that's a thing people say. But,
Yeah.
but
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
hello and welcome back to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, which is a podcast where we talk about FNAF. I'm your host with the toast, right toast, but I have a very special guest. Go on and introduce yourself.
Hello, I am ID's Fantasy. I am another FNAF YouTuber, and number one phone guy fan, I guess.
True. We are here. If you saw the title, you might be a little confused. We are here to not debate, but just talk about Help Wanted 2. And I thought it was very funny and interesting that both of us came to separate conclusions that our player in Help Wanted 2, which a lot of people assume at this point to be Cassie's dad, we both pointed to different Jeremys in the past to be who this person is.
I love how
So
this
I
is
thought
a
it would be
problem we
fun.
can have in FNAF. There are just so many Jeremys. It's like, which one is it?
There's
I
like
don't
8.
know.
There's like 8. There's almost more Jeremys than there are games in the franchise at this point.
Honestly.
So I guess I'll have you kick it off. Who do you think the player in Help Wanted
Alright.
2 is?
So I think that the Help Wanted 2 player is the original beta tester for Help Wanted 1. The Jeremy who, through Tape Girl's recordings, you hear about this original beta tester named Jeremy who, sliced off some part of his face and was the one to discover Glitch Trap and all this stuff. And the reason that I went with this Jeremy is because of there's like, in the original Help Wanted, there's something that says Remember Jeremy. In Help Wanted 2, there's an achievement that says Remember Jeremy. And the Candy Cadet story in Help Wanted 2 goes over how there was someone who was at one point in the past injured in escaping a witch and then came back for round 2 but then died. And so I interpreted that as, okay, Jeremy was the first one to encounter Glitch Trap and he got injured and then maybe he survived. And then this is him coming back for round 2.
That's really interesting. I had been hesitant, and I'll get into why. I had never considered Candy Cadet's story being about Jeremy. And that's really interesting.
Yeah, the reason I went with
think that
that
has a lot of merit.
Yeah, the reason I went with that is because I'm probably talking way too fast right now. The reason I
you're
went
good.
with that
Wait,
is
I assume we both have ADHD, to be honest. So
probably if I have it, it's
I do.
undiagnosed, but I would not be surprised.
I know I do.
Nice. But yeah, so the reason I thought it would be about our player character and Jeremy was, in Ruin, like, so Security Breach, main game, doesn't have Candy Cadet, but Ruin has Candy
Right.
Cadet, and the story seems to be about Cassie. So to me, it made sense that with Candy Cadet being around in Help Wanted 2, it would once again be about our player character.
Interesting. No, I see that. I totally get that. I haven't thought about Candy Cadet in so long that part of me is like kind of forgetting because I didn't think it was Jeremy at the time, and I kind of went like, okay, that's my thoughts on it, and put it in a box and put it somewhere, and then lost the box.
It'd be like
I
that
think
sometimes.
If I'm really trying to rack my brain, I think at the time, honestly, I don't remember who I thought it was. I think I settled on it being Vanessa, but this
Yeah.
was before I thought more about how Vanessa functioned in the story specifically.
Yeah. I went
Um,
through like 3 different options. I went through like, okay, could it be Vanessa? And then for Vanessa, the Vanny ending of Help Wanted 2, you don't destroy Glitch Trap until the end of that Princess Quest 4 game. So
Yeah.
the idea of, the person escaped the witch, who I would assume is Glitch Trap, and was just injured
Yeah.
and then came back. If Vanny's still around, I don't think an escape was had.
And I think that's a really good point. Actually, when we think about that, and I have some thoughts on it that I have in literally I think today or tomorrow's video, whenever I finish making it,
Nice.
about how Vanny would function with Princess Quest 3 and 4 specifically. We also have a question from the email, so I'm going to do one of them early because I think it's worth bringing it up now and not just like pocket that, do it later.
Okay.
Phoenix, he, her in the email. Thank you for your email. If Cassie's, now this is assuming some stuff, but the end of it is really interesting here. But if Cassie's dad is the one who freed Vanessa from Princess Quest 3 and not Freddy and Gregory, which is possible, who have gotten the hell out of Dodge with Burn Trap ending, so on and so forth. Regardless, what the important thing I want to talk about right now, if Princess Quest 3 has been beaten, which it 99% is, how would Vanny still be around to trap Cassie's dad in the trenches of PQ4?
It's interesting to think about for sure.
It really is. I think the proof of Princess Quest 3 being beaten by the time of Help Wanted 2 isn't necessarily that, like, it's very possible or likely that Cassie's dad did it, but I think the proof of it is that Princess Quest 3 only activates when 2 is beaten. 2 only activates when 1 is beaten.
Mm-hmm.
So if 4 is able to be played, I assume then that 3 has been beaten.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The thing is, like, what I want to say there, though, is I'm not sure that it means that Gregory was the one who beat it. Because in the duffel bag messages for normal security breach, someone says that they had already beaten 1 and 2, and that 3, they couldn't play it for whatever reason. But Gregory still has to beat 1 and 2. So I think it's one person has to beat all of the games in sequence.
Interesting. So it's like it's a trail of breadcrumbs. You have to personally get deeper in.
Yeah.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, because I think another piece of evidence for Cassie's dad possibly also having played 1, 2, and 3. At this point, I think, before I keep saying this, do we agree Help Wanted 2's protagonist probably Cassie's dad?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Before I keep I don't want to like put words in your mouth. So
there's
Cassie's dad,
a lot of highlighting of connections to Bonnie, and there's the Bonnie mask, and Cassie said her dad's
the Bonnie mask,
favorite
the
character
Faz
was
wrench.
Bonnie, and there's the Faz wrench, so...
Yeah. I like that for as arbitrary and like kind of cryptic as a lot of Help Wanted 2 is. I think it's possibly the fastest the community has ever settled on a protagonist.
Yep.
At least that wasn't directly stated, like sister location or security breach.
I mean, even with sister location, people were like, Michael is Springtrap?
True. I mean, maybe, I don't know. But with Cassie's dad playing Princess Quest 1, 2, 3, I think another piece of evidence that he had been the one to do it, I think honestly is the sword we see in Ruin. Because canonically, we have one character who has ever been shown to wield that sword besides the princess, and it is Cassie's dad.
Yeah.
So like if he's done it once, maybe he's done it before. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But as far as the Jeremy I went with, to kind of circle back. Oh wait, no, we brought this up for a different reason. Before we go back to the Jeremy I went with. Vanny being around.
Yeah.
Vanny being around is interesting. I think it's one of 2 options is where I'm at right now. Either Princess Quest 3 does not free Vanny, and that ending was Gregory making a comic of like what he thinks would happen if he were to do these Princess Quest machines or whatever. But then the issue comes in that that's the one ending where Ruin did not give us a comic.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. The other option, honestly, and I think it kind of leans on some interpretations you've had of Vanny and Vanessa specifically.
Yeah.
But that being the B72 option, where when Princess Quest 3 is beaten, it doesn't destroy Vanny, it takes Vanny out of Vanessa.
Okay.
And then that would leave whatever is left to do the graffiti in Ruin, to be there for the end of Help Wanted 2, so on and so forth.
I don't completely see how that connects to my interpretations, but...
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't at some point you argue that Vanny was a robot created by Vanessa?
No. I think that Vanessa's the robot, modeled after the original Vanessa, who is Vanny.
I got that wrong. I switched that up in my brain. You are right.
Understandable.
So it doesn't lean on what you've interpreted, but it leans on the opposite of what you've interpreted.
Awesome.
And then the other, I guess the third option would be if it does separate Vanny out of Vanessa, whatever that program in her mind was, if it was the Mimic 1 program implanted and then is put back into the digital space, the only time we see Vanny in Help Wanted 2, I'm pretty sure that's not the real world. So that could be a digital
This is
space
true.
that
Yeah,
Vanny
it
is
could be like a
existing-
digital
existing
version of her
in.
consciousness. Though I do want to say, I do not think that the Mimic is the one behind Glitch Trap.
Fair. That's totally fair. I'm still of two minds of it. Where
I
I'm
think
like,
they're both there.
I think they're both there in some way. I think the Mimic is involved in Glitch Trap. I don't think it's the sole reason Glitch Trap exists, I think is where
Yeah.
I'm at. But like any program like that, it needed to be guided by something.
Yeah, so
So
that's
I
basically my thought. I think like William sort of, because there are like two things behind that would have had to be involved. So like with Help Wanted, it's like, oh, we got these weird old circuit boards from Fazbear Entertainment and we're told to scan them, and then they got stolen back. And then Glitch Trap showed up. And
Who put it there?
yeah, it's like, okay, according to the books, the Mimic 1 program was like an official thing that they used in everything and didn't realize was a problem until it started being a problem. And even then, they didn't fully realize it was a problem. So, like,
Yeah.
why would they steal back the circuit boards? Unless, perhaps, and like the circuit boards were used for pathfinding, whereas Mimic is for story generation. So the way I interpreted that is the circuit boards were, like, had some of William's code from the Spring Bonnie suit or some of his remnant or something, and that connected William through, like, Showtime protocols or something in Spring Bonnie suit that get talked about in the novel trilogy, to the code of the game, and from there, William was able to hijack Mimic 1 in order to, like, mess around with stuff.
No, I think that's really solid. And that idea of, like, especially because the point that has always been raised, and I fully agree with it, is that, like, Glitch Trap existing needed somebody to make that happen.
Yeah.
Glitch Trap wasn't an accident. So if Glitch Trap wasn't an accident, why did Glitch Trap happen? And I
And
know
why
for a
in
while
that
the issue was
specific
like,
way?
exactly. And then the other issue was like, I don't think William's body could have been the beginning of it because FNAF 6 gets rediscovered after the Glitch Trap is in the game. So like something else needed to do that on purpose. And like, who else would have, so I think that's interesting. But so that's the whole weird thing about, I guess before we circle back and to finish answering this question, I guess, do you have any thoughts you want to share on why Vanny is at the end of Help Wanted 2?
I had initially sort of thought, I mean, maybe Vanny wasn't freed, and this, by beating Third Princess Quest 4, you're allowing her to sort of take control of her own mind again. Maybe it's if it is a case where it's the Vanny program rather than Vanny herself, it could be a case where it's like the Vanny program breaking free from Glitch Trap's control, which might be connected to what's going on in Ruin with Vanny Mask.
Fair.
I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that, because the other thing is, like, if there is a Princess Quest 4, why would Princess Quest 3 be the key to freeing Vanny or freeing Vanessa? So like that's the first point that comes up, I think, is like you said, if there is a Princess, like, why would Princess Quest 3 be the thing to do it?
Yeah.
Besides the fact that, like, we see it in Security Breach, but as Ruin told us, we can't really trust anything we saw in the endings of Security Breach, because most of them probably didn't happen, or didn't happen the way we saw them.
Yeah.
But Phoenix, thank you for your question, and I guess to circle back to now that that's been addressed, my Jeremy, my different Jeremy, which theoretically could be the same Jeremy.
It could.
Which is the
I am
worst
not
part
opposed
of all.
to that
it
idea.
could be the same Jeremy.
Imagine it's just the same. We only have two Jeremys. It's just MCI Jeremy, and then Fitzgerald, Help Wanted, all that.
That could have been really funny as, like,
Also Bonnie Mask Bully. They're all the same
God,
person.
it's very Scott to present like 6 different characters with the same name, and then like 10 years later be like, psych, rug pull, they're the same character. That is very Scott. But I went to, I think a lot of us are like kind of leaning on Bonnie Bully being a possibility with that mask, and the like, it feels familiar. That's like, maybe. But my brain went to, if Cassie's dad was the Bonnie Bully, then he would have known the Aftons, being a friend of Michael, who would have been around during that time. And there was one thing that kept bugging me, and it was, why would the mask feel familiar but not immediately be a memory, especially because we're kind of collecting memories in this game.
Yeah.
So the options that I could think of was either whoever is pulling the strings behind Help Wanted 2 is implanting foreign memories into Cassie's dad to make him more like something, which is not off the table, because the idea of recreating the Afton family by rewriting the brain of somebody, I feel like has already happened multiple times in these franchise already. But the other option being, for whatever reason, Jeremy had lost his memories. And when I was trying to think of an issue that would do that, I went back to FNAF 2 Bite of 87, which I understand a lot of people, correctly so, and I think Game Theory really championed this. A frontal lobe injury does not affect your memory. But thinking of like
head trauma.
2014 Scott Cawthon, did he say frontal lobe because he was specifically talking about the motor abilities of the victim? Or did he say frontal lobe because it sounds cool? That's where I'm kind of at.
Does the guy actually know which portion of the head got chomped?
Exactly. Like, brain
There could have been
trauma is
damage to
brain
other
trauma,
parts.
and for storytelling, like, I don't know if the scientific reason was the reason why the frontal lobe was chosen, besides the fact that it sounds really cool to be like, it's amazing you can survive without your frontal lobe, you know?
And in Ruin, like, they have the occipital lobe transponder, but it has to be implanted in the face because of the mask design.
Not the back of the head. So there's so many things like, so with that, I was like, okay, if that is the inciting incident, and then, honestly, it leans a little bit on Pop Goes lore for a bit, where if anyone it doesn't know Pop Goes lore, the kind of the one of the main players of that story is the victim of the Bite of 87, who doesn't lose his memories, but then goes on to like have repressed nightmares of these characters. But I was thinking, like, if the victim of the Bite of 87 was Jeremy Fitzgerald, which technically is also theory because we don't know for certain who it was.
Yeah.
But if it was Jeremy Fitzgerald, who happened to be, who else? Who happened to be friends with Michael Afton, then this narrative kind of forms of, after Crying Child's death, one of Michael's friends is especially like, hey, I'm going to help you through this. And Michael wants to like either look into what happened or try to be a better son. Who knows at this point, because we never get characterization of any of these characters.
Yeah.
But I could see, if William is still in control of the franchise, or at least a big head of the franchise by the time of FNAF 2, him not letting Michael work there. But he might not know who Jeremy is. At least know enough to be like, hey,
possibly,
can you go work there for me? And then if that happens, Jeremy gets hurt, and then Fritz Smith could be Michael. That gets very loose. But the more concrete part of this was, if we have a character who loves this franchise, who seems very affiliated with Bonnie, but seems to not remember a lot. I went to, what is a character who is affiliated with Bonnie, who would have been involved with this franchise for a long time, who could have lost their memory, which is why I kind of linked Bonnie Bully to Jeremy Fitzgerald from FNAF 2, losing the memory of a lot of what happened, but still possibly remembering the love for Freddy's and for Fazbear, and going on with that.
Okay.
And then that would lead to
eventually working as a technician.
And specifically, what makes you so special, right? That whole repeated line throughout this game. What could have made him so special is that he's been here since the Crying Child. He's more connected than he knows to this franchise. But to your point, what makes you so special could very well be that Jeremy is the one that got away.
Yeah.
Yeah, he discovered Glitch Trap and he got away.
William's not happy about this situation.
And I think my only hesitation, and it kind of goes against my own theory in a way as well, but my only hesitation with your interpretation of Jeremy is, I was so sure that Jeremy Help Wanted 1 died. I was so sure of that. And to against my own theory, is the scientific explanation really what has been going on there? Like, was it that Jeremy Help Wanted 1 cuts off his own face and is dead, or was it that it's like a really, I'm cutting off the VR helmet and just getting some of me in the way down.
Yeah, like, the thing is, like, I had originally thought it was his face, too. But,
With
he
the
had just cut
Halloween
off his
mask.
entire face as the Halloween mask on the floor, and there was blood and stuff, and Tape Girl thought it was ink. But the thing is, after rereading the what's it called? The recordings that Tape Girl left, she found the Halloween mask in a brightly lit supply closet. And I feel...
Really? I thought it was dark.
Nope. The
Is it
room
brightly
Jeremy
lit?
was in was dark, but she had originally gone down the hallway because there was a light on in
I
the supply
see.
closet, and that's where she found, and that's where the paper slicer was that Jeremy used.
Interesting.
And she said, oh, she was in this brightly lit room, and she sees the Halloween mask-looking object on the floor, and I had the realization, the Vanny mask sure looks like a Halloween mask.
It sure does. No, that's really interesting. The idea, that's just something that I totally misremembered.
Yeah, so
with the Halloween mask.
I took from there and went, maybe Jeremy didn't slice off his entire face, he just cut out the occipital transponder.
No, that's a really good point. And it could even be the matter of even without an occipital transponder, the idea of I'm about to lose myself in this VR headset, I need to get it off me. Like
And-
that, even
And people
as
in this
little as
franchise
that.
have survived much worse injuries, so...
Like Jeremy Fitzgerald.
Exactly.
That's what I
Dude
mean.
is
Like,
missing
if
a chunk of
if
his head.
I can't literally sit here and be like, it doesn't make sense that your Jeremy survived when my Jeremy got his fucking head bit off.
Yeah.
Let alone the crying child going into comatose, not just immediately insta-dying.
Yep.
So yeah, no, that's a totally fair point. With that, that was my one hesitation. So I'm much more open to Jeremy Help Wanted 1 being the same Jeremy.
Nice.
That's a really good point. I think.
Yeah, I think at this point
I'll
we just can't assume anyone dies ever.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is gonna be a fucking Stormister's Scrap Trap video all over again, where I watch someone's theory and I'm like, damn, no, that's just right.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen
Was that the one with the
Stormister's
Golden
Scrap Trap
Freddy
video, yes,
suit? Yes,
with
that was
the
so cool.
design, that seeing that laid out in that way, I was like, oh fuck, no, that's probably just right.
Everyone's
that
like,
explains
well,
a lot of
Scrap
weird
Trap's
things.
design got retconned. It's like, actually, there's this video that says William took parts from other suits potentially, such as Golden Freddy, and that
Yeah.
explains the difference in the snout shape and stuff like that, and I think that's
And
pretty cool.
It goes with what I've been trying to do, which is assume retcon less, especially
Yes.
after Help Wanted 2. Help Wanted 2 really, I felt like it was a wake-up call of hey, we are really starting to assume retcons a lot
Exactly.
when there doesn't need to be, especially if it's the direct follow-up by the same company. Maybe it's on purpose.
Yeah, with FNAF, so much of the story is told out of order that assuming retcons
Yeah.
makes it harder to find the right answer by a very large degree.
We have to make assumptions in this franchise, but the assumptions we make should be boosted by the game, not go directly against what we know.
Exactly. Just because Security Breach was rushed doesn't mean that it wasn't done. The elements that were included were just tossed aside at it.
Yeah,
That's
and,
something I
not
see a
to-
lot. It's they just decided they didn't want to do that and just stopped. I'm
Yeah, not to say that there aren't
be
any
careful.
retcons in the series.
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe there. Scott
Scott has
directly stated there's a
confirmed
few.
one pretty seamless retcon.
Yeah, one pretty seamless retcon, and after 10 years with how old the older games in the series
You
are,
may have
I'm
lost
sure
track of
that
certain
some
details.
things have been either retconned on purpose, accidentally. I'm sure, but that should be the last option at this
Yeah.
point.
If you can find
It's just
another
that-
explanation, go with that one.
Yeah, it's the break glass in case of emergencies kind of thing.
Mhm.
But and then speaking about Help Wanted 2, is before because we could move on to questions because each of these questions could be 30 minutes long if we really get into it. Is there anything else in particular in Help Wanted 2 that you wanted to talk about? Because and I specifically grabbed, I believe, all Help Wanted 2 questions.
All right.
Because that's what with all the hype and while it's still fresh in the mind, I usually go emails oldest to soonest. I've been going soonest to oldest to try to pluck out some Help Wanted 2 emails.
Makes sense.
So there are things in here, but I'm trying to think of anything that might not be in here that we could talk about. And I'm sure if we do all the questions, and then there's like 20 minutes left of a normal episode. We can just talk
Yeah.
about what didn't get talked about. But I'm trying to think if there's anything in how I know one thing that I've been really interested in is the scrapped voice from the
Yes.
game.
I talked about that a lot in my video.
I didn't get to see that yet. Is that the was that like the main video you made for Help Wanted 2?
Yeah. I've only so I've mostly made just the one Help Wanted 2 video and then like a short or two maybe.
Okay, I think that's what my brain is doing. Is I'm like, yeah, there's like 3 videos ish. It's like, oh no, 2 of those are shorts. They're different. I mean, there's still videos, but I missed that the voice. What I guess what are your thoughts on that scrapped voice?
So I thought it was interesting. When I was reading it, I noticed that the pronouns that it uses to refer to what seems to be Glitch Trap, and such is interesting because it says don't help it escape, and such. But hang on, I'm gonna try. Okay, so one thing I talked about in my video was it uses it in some places and his in others. So like the one using the player in Help Wanted 2 is it. The one you're not supposed to help escape is it. However, the term his is referring to code belonging to someone. It's like, what does it say? Yeah, it says, it's using you to finish where she left off. Only a small piece of his code remains.
Interesting. So it's almost separating, possibly anyway, it's almost separating the idea of Glitch Trap and Afton.
Yeah, so that's part of why I go with the idea of the mimic being hijacked by William is because William's code is his code is attached and making Glitch Trap what it is. And I think that the freeing the Princess Quest ending of Help Wanted 2 is destroying that last remnant of William's code attached to Glitch Trap.
I could see that. That's an interesting way to think of that. I talked about it in a recent video. I believe it was this one. I can just pull the script up and make sure I don't just specifically go against what I just said.
Yeah, I pulled up the script in my video for this just so I could reference stuff like that.
God, my brain is a soup with this franchise anymore. There's just too many things happening at once.
It's great. I love it.
The voice. Here we go. It was about when I was talking about like who we're playing as. It was my Jeremy video.
Yeah.
But it was there's a couple voices that are very interesting. One of them being Mystic Hippo, which we will talk about with one of these questions. Because the Mystic Hippo, there's just a lot of things going on with that. But where did I put talking about that voice? Because the thing with the voices that I find interesting is a lot of people are like, oh, it's Vanny, but it's never stated to be Vanny. It's in the files as voice.
Mm-hmm. And what I actually thought maybe it's Gregory, because it talks about having hacked into the system and using a special code that can't get picked up by the staff. And I'm like, that seems like a Gregory type thing to do, given he's GGY.
No, that's actually a good point on that. I hadn't considered Gregory. I think at the time, I cannot for the life of me find it in the script. Oh, here we go.
Of course, we'll never know, seeing as we kind of can't.
Yeah, it was scrapped. So, like, is it even supposed to be in there? Who knows?
Or is the entire point that it's in the code and you're supposed to, like, I don't know.
I don't know, because I try to operate with, like, if it was scrapped, it's probably there's a reason why, but at the same time, is there? Like, I don't.
What might be the reason why? I mean, I think part of the reason that, like, because of the first bit, I thought, oh, maybe Gregory, but the last bit, with the current Help Wanted 2 doesn't really work with that, because it's like, okay, once you got all the memories, bring them to me, and you don't bring Gregory, you bring them to Vanny in a way. You bring them to Old Man Consequences, I guess. Is the voice Old Man Consequences?
God, could you imagine?
Because, like, we now actually have, like, some level of confirmation that the red dude in Princess Quest is Old Man Consequences because of his lines in the files, so... Yeah. He's labeled OMC, and I'm like, oh, there he is.
Yeah, God. And then the whole thing of, like... I feel very
validated about that.
The weird text at the beginning of the arcade and at the end.
Yeah.
Where, like, at the beginning of the arcade, it's
my
almost,
guy,
like,
on purpose
broken. Yeah, like, and we know, like, there's no translation issue here. That was a choice.
Yeah. And like, why?
And then at the end of it, he's speaking fairly normally. I mean, he only has like 2 lines, but they're fairly normal lines.
Yeah.
So I did find this. I was in the wrong script was the issue. I just on Google Drive searched the word voice and found the first script that talked about it. So I think it was that I settled on the voice being Glitch Trap. I'm rereading this script. I think the idea was that I feel like the thing about the voice is it kind of works with Mystic Hippo, where it's like you need to do these specific things. And I believe what it's referring to is the memory puppets. They're like memory plushes things. And before Vanny interrupts Princess Quest 4, it is very Princess Quest, and then suddenly it's not anymore. It's like the sister location elevator and the claw machine. It's like, which is a whole
what was
other
the sister location elevator about? Are you actually going into sister location at that point, or is this metaphorical? And why?
That's a big
question. Does this
question,
connect
right?
to the whole Elizabeth Vanessa connections thing? I don't know.
Because on one hand, I think one of the reasons is probably to show a dichotomy of the like 8-bit world of Princess Quest and then an interruption, and that interruption being like a fully realistic elevator.
Could also be somewhat symbolic of in sister location, as Michael, you're sent down to this place to free someone, but you die in the process.
Very true.
And then Jeremy, he's trapped in the claw machine, but Vanny is free.
But I think I thought at the time, and I still am leaning on it, the voice being Glitch Trap, because up until that interruption, we're kind of just doing Help Wanted 1 again, where we are listening to something that we think is trying to help us, and then maybe at some point it switches over, or it was the whole time, it's hard to tell. The instructions we follow lead to Glitch Trap taking over our mind. And until that interruption, we're kind of doing that, where we get the Glitch Trap we get the Glitch Trap plushie, which in Help Wanted 1 was like the you lost, essentially. We are interacting with that Vanny mask, and then Vanny comes in and takes the plushie away from us. But until that moment,
that was supposed to happen. Because with the voice, it's like, oh, you have to collect these memories and then bring it to me or something. Bring them to me. And
right, okay,
like,
I remember.
You have to
go on.
Have the plushies in Princess Quest.
I think at the time what I was thinking was it was an inversion of Help Wanted 1's lines. Where in Help Wanted 1, the tapes like 1 through 14 are very like, oh, you need to find these, they're in a weird order, and I'm gonna tell you about this. And then at the
like, oh crap, stop, no, don't.
Yeah, the last two are like, wait, don't. Which at that point it's too late. It felt like an inversion of that, where possibly I was thinking that Glitch Trap was using this to coax Cassie's dad to get deeper and deeper in, but then the inversion happens of those last few lines would have actually been Vanny of like, okay, you've got him, bring him to me.
Interesting.
I don't know. It's interesting because I think it's important that both this voice and Mystic Hippo are leading you to do something that, if not for Vanny interrupting it, would have led you to being taken over by Glitch Trap.
Huh.
And Glitch Trap is the one who gives the memories to you. It's his hand.
Yeah, I do think that's... Well, I think that has something to do with, like, in the files, it talks about its memories. Where is it?
It is bound to the past, find its memories in return. Which, I mean, that's fair. It's just weird to me that Glitch Trap would be giving you the thing that would destroy it if it didn't know better.
I mean, it might not have a choice technically, but I always took that as,
that's
like,
fair.
Symbolically, you are, like, by doing the actions, Glitch Trap's memory is revealed, and you have to take the memory so that you can...
That's fair. Like, it's presenting it, and while you're there, you're taking it. That's a fair point. I think that's a valid interpretation. It's a weird ending to package.
And I think originally, like, isn't there like code in the files for originally it was going to be Vanny giving you the memories?
That I don't know.
I saw something
That I'm
about
not sure
that.
about. I will say, on a first playthrough, I was like, my mind was blown because for a moment, I thought the hand that gives you the ice cream out of Circus Baby was Vanny's hand, and I was losing my mind.
Yeah, I got an ask about that about the hand on Tumblr. I'm like, it looks sort of like Vanny's hand, sort of.
Yeah. Once you like take a second and look
Like,
at
it's
it,
not,
they're just
but, like-
both white gloved hands.
Yeah.
And it's a different glove too. Like the pattern does not like the coloring matches Biddy Babs, which makes
Yeah.
sense. But the hand itself, there's no other model that has that hand.
It's special.
And point to the retcon thing we talked about earlier. I had people in my chat when we like went back and looked at it who were like, "Oh, I mean, it's definitely Vanny. They probably just messed up the model."
That's
I feel
not
like
how
that's
that
irresponsible.
works.
Like it's the same game.
If
like
you're going to copy a model from one place to the other, it's hard to like. I have done some 3D
it doesn't even
modeling, and like
match-
even if you move stuff around, like if you
It
mess
doesn't do
something up,
that.
you would notice and be able to fix it.
Yeah, especially like, and it'd be one thing if Vanny didn't show up in this game, then I could be like, okay, maybe the design has changed. But like Vanny shows up not only at the ending, but then you get the statue of her, and
Yeah.
even those versions of Vanny don't have that hand. So
Yeah.
like to say that in the same game they would have retconned a design, I think that is just over the line.
It is much easier to just copy paste parts of a model than it is to like
Yeah,
make an entire thing from scratch that's close but looks but isn't. It's like, oh well, we put in all this extra work for nothing.
so I think that hand can't be Vanny, but I haven't heard of the hand presenting the puppet. I didn't do a lot. I didn't look into a lot of the like cut or like coding stuff. The only thing I saw was the voice lines that were removed and things like that.
Yeah, I saw someone
Um,
had a screenshot on Twitter or something being like, hey, originally it was going to be Vanny's hand or something. I could be
Interesting.
misremembering, but I was like, oh, neat.
I mean, it's an interesting point. And then I think there are a lot of ways to. I think at this point, you can interpret the ending in a lot of different ways. I think to get a stronger interpretation on any front, I think we just need like a bit more context from another release
Game.
or something like that,
Or DLC,
just-
yeah.
or DLC, or like see like in a future game where any of
Yeah.
these characters end up, and then circle back to here.
Because like with the
Um,
original arc of the series, like we didn't get closure on pretty much anything until FNAF 6.
I'd argue we still don't have closure.
Exactly.
That I there was a weird wave of I noticed a lot of fans on like Twitter, and maybe just because I'm on Twitter. But there was like a weird wave of like the week after Help Wanted 2 of people being like, "Man, that game had no conclusive ending. What the hell? We were supposed to get answers." And
What
I'm
do you
like,
mean
"Have
we
you
were
played
supposed
a
to get
FNAF
answers?
game?"
This is Five Nights at Freddy's.
Like there's a weird wave of people being like, "Man, I can't believe that these games are like so arbitrary." And I'm like,
Like,
I
have you
wonder
seen the very first game in this franchise?
right, like I
This is
understand
not
the
new.
want for answers, but we've never received them. It's always been hint, here's a new question. Hint, here's a new question.
Yeah.
It was just very strange to see this wave of people being like, "Man, that was so arbitrary."
Yeah, I
Yeah, it was.
It was like, yes, exactly. I think that part of it is because we have more answers for some of the earlier stuff, because FNAF 6
Fair.
did wrap up some of those details, and because of things like Didophobia giving more information to what the nightmares were in FNAF 4, people are
Mhm.
like, okay, we have gotten closure, and now this is opening up a whole bunch of questions we don't want to deal with because we want closure. And it's like, but that's not how this franchise works.
Fair. No, that's a fair point. So I guess we'll move on to questions and
All right.
still remain on Help Wanted 2. Unless there was anything else you wanted to just shout out before we get to the specific questions.
Any thoughts on the Nightmare-owned staff bots?
Oh God.
I'm so confused.
Nightmare
they
and staff
there?
bots and the 2 Nightmare-owned plushes. One in
Yeah.
the real world and one within Princess Quest.
Yeah. It's like, why are you
God.
here? What are you doing? Why are you working for Glitch Trap?
Why are you reminiscent of the puppet, which could be Charlie?
Charlie
Is
here,
Charlie
question
still
mark?
here?
Is she
Well-
here or is she just elsewhere? Because she certainly seems to be at least connected to the post-it room.
I did have the out for Charlie in the one video where it was talking about how like in FNAF 6, looking back at that cutscene, we never see Lefty burn. Not once
This
in
is
that
true.
cutscene does Lefty show up in the fire. And then in the Burn Trap boss fight, we have 3 buttons that light up 3 burn rooms. And then in Ruin, when we're going through those back rooms, we walk through 3 burn rooms. We have never seen a 4th burn room. So there is the possibility that Henry couldn't burn Charlie.
Henry just took Lefty and booked it out of there. He left Michael to die in there. He just
Right?
booked it with his daughter.
Well, my thoughts on it were that possibly the room that the M.X.E.S machine is in was kind of like a workshop for Henry of like, okay, well, I still have Charlie. Maybe I can try to silverize this shit. And then something happens there. I don't know. Because then that leads into like maybe Henry made the mimic, and that'll get me some interesting DMs on Twitter.
Yeah,
so,
that will happen.
I don't know. It's one of those things where I think it is notable that we don't have direct evidence of the puppet burning, and we have all these Nightmare On plushes literally everywhere.
And I bring it up at every opportunity, but like, Charlie's name is on the post-it room door. Why would they do that? And it's full of Nightmare On staff bot heads.
God, it'd be one thing if the Nightmare On staff bots seemed to be more neutral. But like Help Wanted 2, it really feels like they're working directly for Glitch Trap.
And that does not seem in character for Charlie if she's connected. Is this like a dark side? Is this Charlie's agony manifesting and causing problems? I don't know.
Which, if it's Nightmare On, that could be a thing.
Yeah.
God, it is something that, like, I just don't know. Because there was, before Help Wanted 2, I was like, okay, maybe Nightmare On is just to be a representation of VR. Because in the public consciousness of that timeline, Nightmare On as a character was introduced in Help Wanted, unless there's something we don't know.
Mm-hmm. They don't know that Ultimate Custom Night.
Right. And then in Ruin, she gets the plushie, and it's that thing from that old VR game, which kind of doubled down the idea of like maybe Nightmare On is, and it was an AR Nightmare On, but whatever, is supposed to be, this is representing the Help Wanted, and this is Help Wanted's influence.
Yeah.
But then Help Wanted 2 happened, and I don't think that's as strong of an argument anymore.
It could still have something to do with like the digital spirit world sort of thing, because it's after getting attacked by the Nightmare On staff bots that you wake up in Mask Bot, which is in a completely different part of the building.
Fair. No, that's a fair point. And I do like that people pointed out, and I went back and double checked, and that is fully true, that the Mask Bot is the only staff bot that looks like that when you wear the mask on. Where it's got the like weird organic, every other staff bot I could find. Now, I may have missed one, but like the very next one you go to is like the chef one in Monty's, and the clothes are like transparent and weird, but the animatronic, like the actual staff bot, is just like matte black and just there. And then I looked at another one, it was the same thing where like the staff bot was just like a fully solid object. Versus Mask Bot, which has like almost organic material if you look at it with the mask on. Which then, God forbid, did Cassie's dad get stuffed into a staff bot?
I don't think it would have been him getting actively stuffed into the bot.
How would he fit?
Because the thing is, like, you don't have to die in something in order to possess it. It's just
fair.
I think it's to some degree it's proximity. Well, I think that's because it's with the mask on. I think that's more symbolic, because you see things that aren't there, and it seems as though it draws from like the subconscious in some way and memories and stuff.
Fair.
So it would be like what Cassie's brain would more understand.
I could see that. It is funny that there's a possibility, not saying it's canon, but there's a possibility that the only possessed like pizzaplex animatronic is Maskbot.
Okay. I will say I feel very
possible.
confident in Freddy being possessed by someone with his "I am not me" speech.
He seems weird,
but that is, but like at this point, he's not present.
I'm still against it.
Interesting.
I'm still against it, but I understand.
I would like
that
to know
argument.
your
I totally
reasons
get
why.
that. I just think the "I am not me" speech is referring to him realizing that Glitch Trap is in his code.
For me,
Because
the
right
reason
after that,
I-
he gets taken over.
Well, technically, it's not actually right after that. What the sort of order of events of that speech is he's like, I've been here before. I found myself when I cleared the path. And while still talking about that, he says, my friends are here. They're angry and confused, but I will protect you. I am not me.
I will say, point in your court, I think Alone Together really parallels with that speech very well. Where when in Alone Together, I forget his name, but the dead kid finds his own body, he like gets all of his memories back.
Yeah.
So I think that idea is kind of interesting.
Yeah. And part of the
and
reason I
do-
don't think I am not me has to do with Glitch Trap is because it feels like he's still talking on the same thought of like, I'll protect you because I am not me. And then Glitch Trap
Fair.
doesn't even start, like, Burn Trap doesn't start hacking him immediately. Like, Freddy falls. And there's a gap of time where Burn Trap's pod opens and he has to make his way to the computer and then sticks his hand on the screen and starts
And
hacking
then does,
Freddy.
like, weird
and then he
brain
hacks
magic
Freddy.
and,
And Freddy's like, and then Freddy says, stop him. And Gregory's like, what the heck do you mean him? That is a thing.
Fair. No, I do think it's definitely possible. I think I'm just hesitant because I haven't personally had evidence that like knocked it out of the park for me on whether or not Freddy is possessed. I think he is definitely there's something to him, whether that be possession or because it's one thing to be like,
Just
oh well,
general haunting.
he's not aggressive because of the safe mode, and like sure, but he goes above and beyond.
Yeah. There's
So,
also
like,
when he's on low power and he there's the whole thing of like, oh, when you're on when you're out of battery, he's not supposed to be able to do anything. And this is like
Kills
before he
immediately.
gets dragged in, weird stuff happens and it makes him so that he attacks Gregory.
Yeah.
This is like earlier on and he goes like he's supposed to recharge every hour. He goes a full 2 hours still wandering around because he gets a second wind to help Gregory. And I'm like, that's a little suspicious.
That's fair. I hadn't considered that one. No, that's fair. And I think another animatronic of the Glamrocks that needs to be reevaluated is Sun Moon.
Yeah,
I
they've
think
got
that's a
something going
whole-
on there.
They got something going on. Like the carousel. Like, why are you at the carousel? Like, it's not in the daycare. So, like, what are
Yeah.
you doing here?
Like, so, Fall Fest, Sun and Moon?
Right? Like, at this
Question mark?
point, Sun Moon Fall Fest? Question mark? It does feel like maybe Sun and Moon and Carney were the Fall Fest animatronics, but if that's true, why is all the Fall Fest art with the FNAF crew?
Yeah.
It's strange. Let alone the Fall Fest carousel using FNAF 2 designs because Toy Foxy is on the carousel.
It's very...
So why the fuck does the quote unquote Fall Fest carousel? Maybe I'll just new question. Why the fuck? Just why? Why'd you do that?
Yeah, basically. I've just decided
but
to
I
ignore
guess-
Fall Fest for the most part. Just be aware it's there.
Fair.
Until we get more information for the sake of my
I'm
sanity.
telling you, if carnival is supposed to be a keyword for a new game, please tell me that new game is Fall Fest.
Yeah.
I think that would rock.
Otherwise,
so
I
hard
will
and
just
give us
give
some
up on
answers.
I will just ignore Fall Fest until the end of...
God, and not only with Fall Fest, Carnival Nurse from FNAF 6.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Who's
don't know.
Carnival? A name
Why
never
does
specified
it
in
matter
game.
there's a nurse?
Why does it matter there's a nurse? Why is she from the carnival? Huh?
Yeah.
God. Yeah, so Help Wanted to gave us both migraines. So on to questions. If you want your questions or theories talked about on the podcast, you can go ahead and email Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. That email is in the description, so you can just copy and paste it because it's a pain to type. But our first question, and I think this is the good one to start on because we kind of mentioned it earlier. Flea, he, they, thank you for your question. In Help Wanted 2, Mystic Hippo's lines are really interesting. Could you go into detail on what you think they mean? One of her lines that really stuck out to me are, why are you here? When are you? Is it possible that there is some funky time stuff going on?
Oh, God. I think
So
that...
I went and got all of Mystic Hippo's relevant lines because there's a lot of like mini game lines
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, pick a card, but like the relevant lines I could find. So just I'll paste them into the Discord so you can just quick reference them. But
Okay.
I'm gonna for the folks at home, the lines that I thought were relevant. There was, you must help. Why are you here? When are you? It needs you. She needs you. Do you remember? Hello, can you hear me? What makes you so special? Do you ever look at your hands? I mean, really look at your hands. And use the key to confront the darkness. The key is familiar to you. The key being the Faz wrench we get.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Mystic Hippo, huh? Like,
Yeah.
part of me is wondering if Mystic Hippo is a talk box for Glitch Trap. And the only reason I think that is the hello, can you hear me? Which is said the same way from Help Wanted 1. It's spaced out, hello, can you hear me?
I mean, that is also a normal way to say hello, can you hear me? But I get where you're going.
It is. Like the counterpoint is that's a thing people say.
Yeah.
But I think that's worth noting. But yeah, the when are you is terrifying.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Cause like
I think it. No, sorry, you go.
Cause we can sort of tell from the Maskbot ending that that at least that ending is in the lead up to Ruin.
Yeah.
But is it possible that Cassie's dad is only in Maskbot temporarily for that, and then he's brought back to do other stuff?
Maybe. I mean, a part of me is wondering, with the minigames specifically, are the minigames us going through our own memories? And then that explains why Sister Location is here. And that explains why sometimes the pizzaplex is good, and sometimes it's run down.
I do think that's definitely possible.
I think that's possible. I think the other idea of like when are you? If we are,
it could just be a line in the game to sort of hint that things aren't as it seems with the pizzaplex looking nice. Maybe.
True.
Depending on what you said.
I think another way to think about it is another question that's here, so I'll bring this up as well. So 2 questions in one. We love that. W Survivor, they, them, thank you for your question. One thing I noticed is that with Help Wanted 2, a lot of the games seem to take place before or around the same time as Security Breach, but a lot of them seem to take place closer to Ruin. This wouldn't pose much of a problem if it weren't for the fact that the main character seems to be the same throughout them, and it seems odd to me they would be continuing to go to work at a pizzaplex after it's clearly shut down. Thank you for your question. I think what this could be, and then maybe when are you is leaning on this, is when we are influenced by this mask, we are continuing to do our job after the pizzaplex has already closed down.
Yeah.
And that's why we are the sole human worker left.
Yeah. Part of with that, when I was talking about the Candy Cadet story earlier, I think like there would have had to be an initial point where he puts on the mask, and I think that like as things were going wrong, like he would have realized, hey, so that thing that traumatized me a few years back, I'm still wanting to get rid of it, right? So he goes in, he's like, okay, I know what I'm doing this time, I won't let it take me. And then he does. Rip.
Fair.
So I it could be a case where it's like he wants to get revenge, but ends up falling into the thing, and then the mask sort of takes over. And what you mentioned earlier about the memories, I had taken it as sort of with the mask messing with his head. Because
that's
it seems
totally
like
fair.
he doesn't, like, as player, there's the reveal of, hey, you have to take off the mask, and then it's like, oh, heck, this is all fake-ish. And so I had sort of interpreted that as he puts on the mask, and he ends up, like, getting his mind sort of hijacked again, and he ends up doing things, and he has to sort of rediscover what he was trying to do in the first place. But he doesn't actually know what he's doing, so he ends up releasing Glitch Trap or something in the Maskbot ending.
Kind of cruel irony if in both trying to fix a problem, Cassie's dad and Cassie released part of what the issue was in the first place.
Yep.
No, I think that's a good point, especially because the one confirmed hard fact time where like our player is like, hey, I don't have a full grip on what's going on, is the Bonnie mask, where it's like, this seems familiar. And at that point, we are as deep as we can be in this whole mess. Where like, I'm very certain that his mind is not in the right place at that point. So no, that's a great point that it could just be that like the mask has been for some time now messing with Cassie's dad's mind. And I think that's a really good point. Um there was something I wanted to say about right, what Cassie's dad or Jeremy is doing. I wonder, and I kind of go into this in this week's video. I wonder if part of that whole idea of like the mask messing with his mind and he's not exactly sure he's doing something but it's actually something else. I wonder if he is responsible for more than just Roxy's change visually when it comes to Ruin. And
Oh
part of the
yeah,
reason
that
I go
reminds
into
me of a
that
thing. When I
um
was making a theory on Ruin initially about
mhm,
the which endings of Security Breach would be, I noticed or someone pointed out to me, one of the two, in places like Blast, there's a table with like equipment for working on stuff.
yeah.
And I was noticing like, hey, there's been like technicians or something in the building
Yeah,
potentially
someone's
trying
doing
to
stuff
fix the
here.
place.
I think in trying to fix the place while he's wearing this mask, he's been making it. He's been doing modifications he's not meaning to. I think
Yeah.
one of the evidences I can point to, which is loose, but it's at least something because I have nothing on Monty or Freddy because Help Wanted 2 hates them apparently.
Yep.
But when it comes to Chica, throughout the game, we are feeding her rotten food, cheese, like trash essentially. And in the real lobby, not the AR version, what looks like Chica's hand is on the main stage along with some other animatronic parts.
Yeah.
Then in Ruin, Chica's filled with trash and melted cheese and is missing that hand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's the shell of that hand because it's the right hand, but
Yeah.
the right hand is just Endo, where the
point still
shell is on the
stands.
stage. So I wonder if Cassie's dad is not only responsible for Roxy's change visually, but Chica's. And if that's 2 out of 4, can we extend that logic to why Monty and Freddy look like that? Or if Burn Trap ending happens in some way in Security
He's the one who
Breach,
dragged Prototype out of storage.
exactly, like he's the one who went, well, we need a Freddy, and then went and dragged Prototype Freddy out.
I think that's very
Um,
likely.
and then with Monty, no evidence because he doesn't show up, but just logically, this is the logical proof, not an evidence proof. So fan fiction. But if we
I respect it.
consider Cassie's dad's connection to Bonnie and knowledge of that, if his mind is already warped in some way, and Monty's visual change goes from no legs but most of his shell to brutalized, Cassie's dad could have been the one to do that. I don't know how. I don't know, but I mean, Monty doesn't show up, so what the fuck else do we have to say about it?
I think it's
I-
also interesting how, like, after Ruin came out, people were pointing to the differences in the way the animatronics looked and being like, well, this just means that any design changes between animatronics between games doesn't matter and such, because it's all retcons. But but Help Wanted 2 actually shows someone's been in here and they were probably. I think that's
yeah. Another point to like, hey, don't assume. And even after Help Wanted 2, I've seen comments where it's like, no, obviously it was a retcon that then Steel Wool later made it feel like not a retcon.
That's
I'm
not-
like, no, that's not how that works.
like, even if they're filling in the gaps, that doesn't mean that it was a retcon in the first place. Like, the fact that there is now an explanation means that, like, nothing has been contradicted.
It's called a mystery. It's not it's not a retcon when you didn't know the answer and now you have the answer. It's just that they answered the question.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I wonder if that goes into that idea of like I'm just going to say Jeremy because it might
Fair.
mean something different for the both of us, but it means the same. So,
I am not opposed to both of us being correct about Jeremy.
But I think the idea that Jeremy is doing things thinking he's like fixing this place, because I also happen to think that that arcade conspiracist, now it says the point against it says exit interview, which assumes he's being fired.
That's why
But
I'm
at
a
the
little
same
hesitant that he's that specific person, because then he would have had to get rehired.
Fair, but consider Help Wanted 2 by the time we start working could be after Security Breach anyway. So I don't know. It's interesting, and it could have been that like he was hired, doing the things, gets fired, and then the mask draws him back. I don't know. Regardless, um, the idea that Jeremy is trying to fix what this issue is at the pizzaplex for either the love of Fazbear, the fact that Cassie's there, whatever the reason being.
Mhm.
The fact that I think the idea of Jeremy doing what he thinks is right, but wearing the mask and inadvertently helping Glitchtrap and helping to essentially ruin this place makes a lot of sense narratively
Yeah.
and evidentiarily.
Yeah, I think that it brings it, like, yeah, part of the reason I liked the idea of Help Wanted 1 Jeremy being Help Wanted 2 Jeremy was because of the way that it, like, brings the current story arc sort of, like,
Mhm.
together in a full circle sort of way. Like, we're going to
I
get
see
more
that.
information, but it
It continues the through line.
yeah. Because, like, the thing is, like, I don't mind it being a character from older games.
Mhm.
I am a believer of, like, Freddy being possessed by Mike and the crying child being
Yeah.
linked to Gregory and all that stuff. I don't mind older characters. But I think it's nice if the modern arc, um, isn't solely reliant on the events of the past to explain the events going on now. You know?
No, I totally get that. Yeah. Um, no, I do. I like the idea of continuing the modern characters and not just being like, oh, these modern characters are throwaways to continue the storylines of the past characters, but rather intertwining them.
Yeah,
I
I
think
like
that's
it being a
really,
bit of both.
yeah. No, I like that. As far as other Mystic Hippo lines, one that I've seen a lot of talk about is, do you ever look at your hands? I mean, really look at your hands.
Yeah.
That one seems interesting to me. I interpreted that as Mystic Hippo trying to goad Jeremy into remembering his part in the crying child's death.
Interesting.
Because a very common like storytelling theme is like the hands being like
Yeah.
a guilty conscious reminder and that. But I have seen people talk about that's supposed to mean your VR hands, being that you're not really where you think you are. So I don't know.
Yeah, it depends on
Do you have
how
any
literal
thoughts
it
on the
is.
hand line?
I'm currently keeping my options open right now just because there are so
Fair.
many ways it can be interpreted and we don't know enough about why he would be
Mhm.
telling us to look at our hands.
No, I see that.
Because the thing is,
And
like,
then
I do feel like we have to be physically there to be interacting with something.
yeah, I agree with
Because, like, to
that.
take the mask on and off, I do think we have to, like, be present. So people have
Yeah,
been saying,
and
oh,
the
we've been dead
hands
the
look the
entire
same.
time. And, like, maybe. But also, I do think
Not
there
to
has to be some
mention-
sort of physical presence.
Yeah, not to mention like hands looking like that in a VR game, very very common thing. That is just kind of what like if hands don't look like that, it is a purposeful stylistic choice.
Exactly.
Otherwise, that is the default. So
Mhm.
I don't know if it's that literal, but then the question does become, what is that talking about?
Yeah.
I think I've even seen some people on Twitter mention possibly it connecting to M.X.E.S, since
Mm.
it has those weird distended regular shaped hands. Which like I don't know how I feel about that, only because the idea of M.X.E.S being maybe Cassie's dad, I don't think that tracks.
Yeah, with the mask bot ending, that feels a little
Yeah.
weird.
The idea that Cassie's dad would be both Maskbot and M.X.E.S seems very strange to me.
Yeah. Like, I mean, maybe, but, like, he would have to somehow
Yeah, it's
get
possible.
from point A to point B. I mean, never know. Maybe like, as Maskbot, he was forced to give the mask, and then he was, like, booted out of Maskbot, and he's like, oh, crap, I got to stop my daughter from dying, but the way he would do it would then be to set
Would
all the
kill her.
animatronics on her?
Yeah, I've always preferred the interpretation that M.X.E.S as a program is not even malicious. Because, like, in the context of Ruin, it's like, this thing's killing me. But, like, if we take a step back, M.X.E.S as a program is going, something is hacking, I'm going to call and alert nearby animatronics that are programmed to safely remove people from the restaurant.
Yeah.
It doesn't know that they're gonna kill her. Like,
It's just like, oh,
So,
security, alert.
Yeah, he's just calling the cops on you. Like, that's all he's doing. Like, so I don't see M.X.E.S as needing to be possessed or even being a villain in any sense. It's
And if
kind of
he is,
just like,
I'll live with
hey,
it. But
I need help here.
Yeah. Like, I don't really mind any interpretations about it. It's like, he could be benign. He could just be like, I don't know, maybe he's evil. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, he could be. He could be. I'm currently on.
Just two bad
I don't
guys.
think he is. Yeah, I'm currently on. I don't think he is.
That's fair.
Furthermore, that the redesign that M.X.E.S received very much felt like an attempt to make it look less evil. Because that original design is rough.
Yeah. It's still interesting that they went with that they had that original design and then they left that in the files.
It is strange that they left it there. That is very strange to me because, like, I feel like after security breach, I can excuse it because it was like the first big like file rip game that they released besides like Help Wanted, which didn't really have anything like that.
Yeah.
After Security Breach came out, at this point, you guys know this fandom. Like, you know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, and that's part of what, like, somewhat related. Like, with the Gregory dropping the elevator, there are 2 Gregory lines in the files, and they're both labeled Gregory. And, like, Steelwool now knows, okay, they're going to comb these files for everything. We're going to, like... So I interpret it as maybe they left them both labeled Gregory to be confusing about what actually happened. What happened.
Exactly. They don't want to give the game away. Like, I think after the Princess Quest Sprite incident where it was labeled as Cassidy and then quickly changed to like Princess Sprite or something. I think that feels like the moment of like, oh, anything we leave in here, they are going to rip out of it. Yeah. So to leave a full unused model of a previous version of a character does feel like, why did you do that? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think, I guess to the, which one was this? This was, oh, right, this is the hands question. I don't think Jeremy turns into M.X.E.S because I think Maskbot is a period on his story.
Yeah.
But thank you for your question, Flea and W Survivor at the same time. I do have another question here, from Dark Reapers, they, them. Now, this one's gonna get spicy. This one's interesting. I don't know how I feel about it, but I don't think Dark Reapers does either because they said, isn't it kind of funky that the alleged FNAF 4 bully with the connection of the Bonnie bully mask obtains a memory wearing a Foxy mask out of a rectangular chest that kind of looks like the box from FNAF 4.
I'm pulling up the clip.
So I will point out the boxes visually do not look the same.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't it like a treasure chest?
Yeah, it's like, well, it's not a treasure chest. I mean, it might be, but treasure chest would have the rounded top, stereotypically.
Yeah.
Right? It is more like, I would argue it's way easier to make the argument that is supposed to look like a treasure chest than the FNAF 4 box.
Yeah.
But
and it's at like the end of Foxy's log ride, so I'm not. But it's fun to think about.
It's fun to think about. That's what I think. Like, I think when I saw this, I appreciate that it starts with, isn't it kind of funky? Because it is kind of funky. Don't know if it's meaningful, but it's one of those things where I'm like, huh, it would be a thing supposed to, like, wearing a Foxy mask coming out of a rectangular box. That's fair. But at this point,
I feel like they would have more intentionally made it look like the FNAF 4 box if that's what they were trying to get at. Or
at least like put like 2 latches on it or something.
Yeah.
Or like a lot, like just any rectangular box is kind of out there. Not to mention at this point, I don't know if it's a hot take, I don't think the FNAF 4 box is meaningful at this point.
Yeah, same.
I don't think it's relevant. Or I think at the time maybe it was. And then after like 6 more games came out, he was like,
I think if it mattered, we would get answers in some respects to it.
I think they'd be more direct than this.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, didn't Scott say that it was like the pieces put together? So I just sort of interpreted it as like, oh, maybe it's just the stuff you need for Happiest Day to happen. And then it doesn't really matter what it is. No?
I at this point, I think the reason the box is never opened is because Scott isn't sure what he wants to put in there yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think just straight up, I don't think it's a retcon. I think it's one of the things that Scott did a lot in early FNAF games, which was make a weirdly vague thing that can be interpreted in a lot of ways.
And then he
so
can
that
answer
6
what it
games
is later
later-
when he comes up with it. And you
and
know
it
what?
felt
That
like
is perfectly
foreshadowing
valid.
the entire time.
I can respect that.
It's the foreshadower's bluff. It's leaving a lot of extra detail so any of them can be used to accidentally be foreshadowing later on.
Exactly.
Which, like, valid. This is valid. I like One Piece. Does that shit all the time. But like yeah, to the question, I don't think it's meaningful that a Foxy mask wearing plush came out of a rectangular box. I think we needed more there.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's an interesting thing to note. That's the one thing. It's a good point to say and brainstorm on. But
Yeah.
I don't think it landed anywhere. But thank
And
you for
hey,
your
you can
question,
always
Dark
make fun
Reapers.
fan content out of stuff like
True. But that is all the questions I had. Is there anything else on Help Wanted 2 or Jeremy that you wanted to mention? Because I can't think of anything. I feel like we covered a lot of bases.
Hmm.
I'm racking through my brain right now.
Thoughts on Helpy?
I really am starting to think. I didn't come up with it. A lot of like collectively on Twitter, I saw like 6 or 7 people all at the same time be like, "Hey, what about?" But I am starting to get won over by the argument that Helpy is kind of like the current avatar for Glitchtrap, possibly. In the idea of Helpy, like my through line right now, Help Wanted 1, Glitchtrap learns that he's kind of off-putting to people. So until they are under his control, he needs to lure them in a way that will not off-put them. Helpy's pretty cute and approachable.
Yeah.
That's my through line, because like the Help Wanted 1, both Jeremy and then Tape Girl and presumably Vanessa, we don't get to hear her thoughts until the very end.
But we
they're
can
all
sort
like,
of hear our
"There's
own
this-
thoughts, and it's oh boy,
There's this weird
hiya."
fucking rabbit staring at me.
Yeah.
And then like everywhere else, like in like Cassie seems fine with Helpy, loves him. I guess we see Helpy in a lot of the merchandise, and then again in Help Wanted 2, Helpy is like, pick up your goddamn present.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Helpy?
I think it's I'm still sort of working through it, I think that like
Fair.
there's Helpy the program,
Sure.
then there's Helpy being hacked by the Mimic,
Fair.
and then like there's whatever was going on in Help Wanted 2 where you have So the way I sort of think of it is that like the Glitchtrap program was attached to Helpy and was using it. And then
Mhm.
presumably in the Princess Quest ending, you purge the rest of William's code from Glitchtrap, so all that's left is. And so that's why
Yeah.
you in Ruin you have normal Helpy, but then sometimes the Mimic with orange eyes taking over.
I could see that. I think I'm more on the line of Helpy being Glitchtrap, also to explain that one weird scene in Ruin where Grimmick and Helpy argue for a second. In Monty, where at the end, when you encounter M.X.E.S in Monty's after a certain point, Helpy comes on and is like, I modified an inhibitor to be able to get rid of him. He won't bother you anymore. And then Grimmick comes over the walkie saying like, I'm the one who gave you the code to do that. This might be bias, I don't know. I don't see the Mimic as something who would think making a fake argument to sell their identity would be necessary.
Interesting.
Because at that point, Cassie already bought that she's talking to Gregory. So I don't know why he'd be going through the effort of like, oh, I should have these guys argue to make it seem like they're more realistic, versus Grimmick being like, why is Helpy going off script? What's going on?
Yeah, I'd say it could go either way.
It could definitely go either. It could go a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm at.
That's
But
fair.
Helpy is definitely becoming quickly more important. I know I made the jokey post on Twitter where it's like, oh yeah, Glitchtrap got a new persona, but I do I
Yeah.
do genuinely think that it could be Glitchtrap is realizing that his weird, like stitched together persona is kind of off-putting, but people already trust and like Helpy.
William's like, dang, I can't be my actual persona anymore.
I gotta be a marketable plushie. Fuck.
Sad.
Yeah. I guess anything else on Help Wanted 2? I'm trying to. I obviously, you know, are always welcome to come back if there's other shit. But in the moment, while Help Wanted 2 is fresh on the mind, I can't think of anything besides like things that would probably be like little details we probably already agree on.
Yeah.
Like Faz Force, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows what exactly it is, but it is meaningful that 6 things become 1, you know? So
Well, I mean, yes, but also it feels like you're referencing the original Candy Cadet stories with that, and I have a very different take on the original Candy Cadet stories.
not
than
necessarily
the 5 Things
Candy
Become One.
Cadet.
Okay.
Not necessarily Candy Cadet, but just the idea that like many times in this franchise, multiple things congeal into one thing. I'm partially thinking that this might, and I don't like it.
Oh.
Because the puppet's there, and the puppet makes things weird.
That
Because if
does.
the puppet wasn't there, I would just be like, MCI reference, done. And then call it a day and be like, cool, if the puppet's not here, it's Molten MCI, it's just a reference to that, bada bing, bada boom, done. But the puppet is there, isn't it? So that does make things weird.
And I don't believe Molten MCI, so
Fair. It would have been if the puppet wasn't there, I would have used that and then like double tripled down on MCI or on Molten MCI. But because the puppet is there, not only because I don't think Charlie can be considered part of the MCI. I'm very against that.
yeah, no.
For several reasons. So now it's just, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. I think
There's
the
a
way
lot of
I
this
sort
game
of
that is
took
just,
that
that's weird.
was because of the memory plushies. I took that
Yes.
as William's the memories and power that he's gaining is because of those deaths in particular.
I could see that. You know, it's interesting. On that note, on what in Faz Force, it is a like cheap commodified a recreation of these characters. Which is very like and this is probably getting too deep in the weeds, but it's very cold of an approach to like talk about these characters. Meanwhile, these Poppet, I've been talking a lot about how these memory plushes are very stylistically reminiscent of a Poppet, which in many cultures and faiths are used for various positive like rituals, prayers, things like that. But a very, very common thing of that is if you were to go to a tombstone and light a candle and leave a poppet in the memory of someone, that's like a by the books memorial. So on one hand, the ending that seems to bring back Glitchtrap has this like cheap, cold recreation of these characters, where the one that seems to destroy him seems very respectful to them.
Yeah.
So that could be nothing, but it is interesting to think about.
Yeah.
That maybe that's my Foxy box. That's mine.
Maybe.
But thank you for coming on the podcast. Is there anything coming up soon that you wanted to shout out?
I'm currently working on a video about Scott's post about the canonicity of the books, and I'm going to be going into the nuance of the topic.
I had a whole 45-minute podcast on that. Good luck.
I'm okay at summarizing. I've already done a video on the book, so I can sort of just
Fair.
go and just sort of the focus is mainly going to be like, okay, here's how Scott uses the term canon, and here's how he uses the term continuity, and here's why if you need to say that something is obvious, it's probably not obvious.
Yeah.
And then
I have a feeling we
makeshift
agree.
plushies coming up eventually.
Let's go.
So be on the lookout for that.
So yeah, and again, link in the description. Go check out the channel. It's very good. And keep an eye out for those stuff coming out. But in the meantime, thank you for watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.